If your media buyer does not have a base level knowledge of creative strategy, you have a problem.
We've worked with brands that do like $2-3 million a month, and they came to us and they were just doing 5 or 6 creatives a week.
Pause this video, install it now, because you're only going to start collecting data once you start to install it.
If your business can't scale, it's probably
Even if you have an amazing team, if you split their focus too thin, then it's going to be diluted.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is Brando. This is Jordan. We are here calling from, where are we calling from?
We're in Medellin, Colombia.
Medellin, Colombia. It's my personal first time. I know that you've been here.
Yeah, I've been here one time before, second time. But yeah, we're enjoying it out here. We're soaking in the culture.
Yeah, and as we soak in the culture, we thought, hey, we have 2 nice cameras and, 2 working mics, and let's just, do a little podcast in this apartment. And let's get it going. How are we going to structure this?
Yeah, so what we're going to do is we receive common questions in our YouTube comments through calls that we have with potential brands that we're working with in our school communities. And what we are going to do in this video is, rather than just coming up with our own topics and talking about them, we're actually going to answer these questions directly, right? So we're going to read out the questions, we're going to answer them, we're going to go back and forth, we're going to have different opinions, different views, and the goal is so that you can see, on a more practical level, how you can actually apply these things to your own brand. And we're going to be talking about specifically ad creatives, specifically for meta ads, and how you can find winning ad creatives consistently, because I don't know about you, but for me, it's one of the biggest bottlenecks that, my brands and also the brands I speak to face, is how can we find more winning ad creatives on a more consistent basis so we can scale?
Yeah, to scale. Yeah, and so we're going to talk about frameworks. At least we work with 8-figures and 7-figure brands. I know that you have a similar structure within your agency. And for the new viewers, we're agency owners. So we're not like some sort of guru here and there. We're just sharing, valuable information that we've seen works well for us, and which is also one of the reasons why we started our channels, right?
Exactly.
So anyways, to get right into it, let's start with the first question.
Sure.
So the first question that we got, at least I believe this is from my own YouTube channel, is, I'm in the process of scaling my brand, my eCom brand. How many creatives do you think I should test on a weekly basis?
Yeah.
Okay.
Very, very common. What I will say to begin with is it depends, right? And it depends a lot on your ad spend. Generally speaking, the more you spend, the more creatives you need to test. But it's not always that, doesn't always work so linear. We have a client where we produce a lot less creatives, but our win ratio is so high that we don't need to produce a ton of ad creatives, right? We don't, unless we want to scale further. But there's issues with the bottleneck there is inventory, right? Other brands, they need to produce a lot more because maybe the win ratio isn't as good, maybe because it's a more competitive market, et cetera, et cetera. So, just to give you some ideas, I think if you're spending anywhere between 3K and 6K a day, we're producing 40 to 50 creators a month. So it's about 10 to 12, 13 a week.
That's exactly what we do. Yeah. We do 10, 12, sometimes 15. But if you find, if you do banger ads with intent, meaning that every single ad is focused on targeting one specific persona that has one specific pain point, and the ad is structured in a very organized way that makes sense to the end consumer. We've worked with brands that do $2-3 million a month, and they came to us and they were just doing 5 or 6 creatives a week. Yeah. But their win rate was 20%. So 1 in 4, 5, 6 ads was actually scalable, a winner. Not those winners where you maybe spend $5K and they die out over time. I'm talking about spenders that, spend $100, $300, $500,000, right? And so, just put that into perspective. If you're able to do good research, you don't need to do many ads.
Yeah.
Right?
It's the old, the battle of quality and quantity, right?
Yeah. So I always talk about that actually. If you do a lot of, if you want to go with the quantity route, you're essentially competing against TikTok shop brands that do 5 million a month, that do 30, 40, 50,000 creatives every single month. That's what they get from their creators.
Wow.
They work with dozens, and each creator, generates 10, 20 videos. The problem with that is that your hit rate of the ads is going to go down, because as you scale your creative processes, and you do a lot more, it's obviously natural that your hit rate goes down drastically. But it can go down if you're producing 30,000 videos in 1 month, right? Even if like you have a 0.001% hit rate, you're still going to find 100 winners, right?
Yeah.
So I guess you have to put that into perspective.
Yeah. For me, like what I prefer the most is quality over quantity. However, the quantity part still matters, right? Like as you scale, you still need to hit more volume, more quantity, but you need to keep the quality there, because otherwise, I said you're competing with these big dogs that, it's very difficult to compete with that, right? Unless you have like crazy budget.
In fact, one thing that we do is that we always check hit rate. Like if you're not, like I speak to many 7-figure brands that they just don't track hit rate. I don't understand why, but I understand why, because it's maybe a bit more technical and you have to be very precise to track all the data to track hit rate. But what was I saying? So as soon as we see, like as soon as we're trying to scale creatives, so do more creatives, but we see that the hit rate is just going too much down, then we take a step back. So we stop ourselves and say, hey, let's make sure that we bring the hit rate back up before we decide to do even more creatives and scale even more aggressively. Yeah. Okay.
And this was a bunch of things, by the way, like that if you do increase that win rate, it's like you're a salesman and you're increasing your close rate. Now all of a sudden let's say you had 10 calls and you only close 1, you increase your close rate, you double it. Now you're closing 2 for every 10. You're getting the same deal flow, but you're just closing more.
Yeah.
And it's a similar thing with the win ratio. You're going to get more efficiency out of the time and money you're putting into that content and creative. And also you're going to be scaling more consistently because the ability to find winners is a lot more consistent in nature.
Exactly. Yep. Cool. Next question.
Let's do it. I'll go for one of mine. So the one I have here is, I'm building an internal team for my brand. How do you connect the media buyer with the creative team to create synergy between both of those departments? And creative team being the creative strategists and the editors. Like, what does the process look like? How does that look internally for us? So I'll let you go for it.
So basically the question, just to understand, is how do you connect, how to make sure there's synergy and communication between the creative strategist and the editors and the media buyer, basically all the creative team that make the ad account, the creatives. I mean, what we do, I'll share what works for us, is that I see like a lot of brands that they onboard employees or team members and they don't have them work together. Like it's kind of like separate departments. I'm not sure why, but I've seen this in many, many cases. At the end of the day, any business that you build, I think, is a people business, right? We can't scale unless we have good people on the team. And so it would be kind of stupid or ridiculous if we don't have these people work together. So if there's one thing that works very well for us, is that we have like 1 to 2 team calls every single week. I would probably, if you're looking to scale with your own team, right, have like a couple of weekly calls where the creative strategist and the media buyer and the editors can kind of like do a little training or sharing of idea session, right? And at the end of the day, the way that we structure is that the creative strategist does all the research and they like basically hold the gold. Like they know what works, they know what research, they've done the research, so they know what trends work, the angles that work, the creative concepts that work. And they should also be able to go into the ad account and analyze what metrics are working there, the hook rate, the hold rate, all these things that are related to like specifically ad creative. So they're going to be the leads, right? They're going to communicate with the media buyer. The media buyer is also going to tell them what is working and what is not working, so they know. And then they give the tasks after they do the research to the editors, right? So as you can see, everything is a bit intertwined and there needs to be synergy to make this process happen in the first place. Makes sense?
Yeah. If your media buyer does not have a base level knowledge of creative strategy, you have a problem. If they just look at the numbers and that's it, it's not enough, because they should be able to tell the creative strategist, this ad is working and here's why. They should know to look at hook rates, hold rates, percentages, engagement graphs, all that stuff.
That's a real media buyer.
Yeah. The creative strategist should also have some base level media buying knowledge, right? Of course, they'll need to understand how to read the data, but they also need to understand the structure of the ad account. Why are the campaigns set up in this way? What is the philosophy the media buyer has that he set them up in that way or she set them up in that way? And I see that a lot of these roles are, I said that they're also split in terms of they're siloed into their own, like there's no intertwine in terms of skill set. When you have that, it's a game changer, because now they're operating on the like much similar wavelength than, them just, here's some creatives. Okay, launch the creatives. Okay, these creatives worked. Okay, let's produce more of those. Like I'd say that's more like a 7-figure structure, and that can get you there for sure. But if you want to scale to 8 figures and 9 figures, like that consistency of finding winners goes back to what we just answered. The team needs to be on the same wavelength. And yeah, just.
I like that term, wavelength. Yeah, I completely agree. Let's go on to the next question. Cool. So I found a product to scale. Should I consider testing advertorials and listicles? If so, when is the right time? So that's a good question, and I get it a lot. And also not only on advertorials, but also on like other creative concepts, or like, should I test AI, UGC videos? The answer, I think this question is like asking people, like, should I test creatives? Like, it's like, it's a given. Like, you should test any sales process as long as it makes sense with your avatar customer. So an example is, should you test an advertorial? The answer is absolutely yes. When should you test an advertorial? It depends how, like, it really depends on where you're at in the business. For example, if you're looking to build a long-term brand and you see and you know that the advertorial is going to bring more value to your customer, even if it takes an extra time to develop it, do it, program it, whatever, you should be doing it, right? So it's not a matter of like, should I do it? It's a matter of just like, when in my schedule am I deciding to do this or not?
Right.
So I think you also have to go back and understand your customer and understand, based on the research that you do for the customer, if it's a sales process that resonates specifically for that avatar customer. Because maybe a 50-year-old Sally that has belly fat doesn't resonate with like a specific creative or a specific sales process, right? Makes sense?
Exactly. I have 2 thoughts on this. The first one is that you should look at your funnel metrics and understand if that is something that should be a focus right now. For example, if you have an amazing conversion rate and average order value balance, meaning you multiply both those metrics together, conversion rate without the percentage brings you to 250 or above, then maybe you should focus more on the ad creative for now. The second to that, which is a little bit of a caveat to the first one, is that if you want to expand and scale, and we just look at, let's say, the 5 stages of market awareness. So every market has 5 separate stages. As customers at each of these stages, you have aware, most aware, you have product aware, solution aware, problem aware, and unaware. As you get to the more unaware stages, those audiences become bigger in size, but they're also harder to convert, right? So there's more untapped potential and money in those sectors. And in order to go after those sectors need a lot more education, and there's a much longer sales process than someone just seeing an ad and impulse purchasing. Yeah. So when we talk about advertorials and listicles and landing pages, it can help a lot to educate those less aware stages of market awareness and bring them towards the product education to then converting into a buyer.
Yeah, and I've seen sales processes that are like 3 pages long. So it's ad, then it's advertorial, then it's a landing page, and then it goes to the offer page. It's like, it's multiple steps, and that's for sure 100% because they're dealing with like unaware or people that are maybe problem aware, which is less aware than solution aware, right? So it's very interesting. I think I really resonated with what you said about understanding your metrics. I think the game here and being very smart in business, like the smart people in business, they understand levels of prioritization. So like, if your business can't scale, it's probably because of your, like, assuming you have a decent product, somewhat of a decent page, whatever, it's probably your creative. So the creative, I think, should be the utmost priority. And once you have decent metrics there, good metrics, then you can really focus on improving the rest of the funnel. But you need to understand, what time is the right time.
Exactly. And too many brands try to do a lot of things at once. And what that does is it splits focus. Even if you have an amazing team, if you split their focus too thin, then it's going to be diluted. So focus on one thing, right? Do that, then go into other areas. And I think that's just a better way. Maybe it's going to take longer than you expect, but you're going to be more consistent and more sustainable with the scale that you achieve.
But yeah.
All right, you want to go to the next one?
Yeah, I have a cool one here. Let me see. Okay, I have an existing brand doing multi-7 figures in the beauty industry. Okay. My AOV is around $80 and my conversion rate is 2%. How can I improve my conversion rate to scale to the next level? Is it the offer? What can I do?
Yeah. So there's definitely room for conversion rate improvement there. Maybe AOV as well. Like we were talking about this last night, that you need to look at both those metrics in balance, right? Both of them affect each other. So, in terms of improving AOV, could be the offer structure, right? But the question was more about conversion rate, so I'll focus more there. I think you have to look at the data and understand why your conversion rate is lower or where the opportunities are to be higher. One thing that I love to do with my team is heat maps and session recordings. There's a free tool, Microsoft Clarity. If you don't have something that's installed, pause this video, install it now, because you're only going to start collecting data once you start to install it, right? Once it's installed, then you're going to collect data. It's no historic data. So do something like that. If you want to be more sophisticated, heatmap.com, you pay for that. It assigns dollar values to each of the clicks and stuff. It's pretty cool. But honestly, Clarity suffices at the moment. And what you do is you look at the session recordings, look at the heat maps, you understand the user behavior on your website, understand where the dropouts are occurring, what areas are they interacting with the most. And from there, you come up with a hypothesis as to what you should change to make the user experience better. Lower the conversion rate. As long as you're educated on the product, you have a good offer, your price point isn't way out of the equation, and you show social proof, authority, reviews, all that stuff. Usually it's like a user experience mainly, right? So make sure that basic things are covered with your user experience. Things are above the fold, easy to find, information's presented clearly, organized, navigation is easy to go around the website, all that stuff.
I would say one thing to that is that if you have a killer page, like a good page, it could be that people are not educated enough and are not ready for conversion.
Yep.
Because so it's not a problem maybe from the creative, because you can't educate somebody in 60 seconds. So there is actually a way to do it with creative. You do long form VSLs, right? I've seen, especially in the beauty industry, supplements, anything that you put on your body or ingest or whatever. I've seen VSLs that go on for 3, 5, 10, 20 minutes, 20-minute VSLs. And so once you go through a VSL like that, you're basically going all the awareness stages, and they're ready. If they watch your VSL for even 5 minutes out of a 10-minute video, they already are invested. They invested 5 minutes of their time watching an entire video, and they're probably a lot more educated. So that is just one example, is just changing your sales process to allow higher conversion to happen in the first place by probably more education or touching on some pain points to have people reflect that they have a problem and address that they have a problem, right? That is one way to think about it.
We also spoke about congruence before off camera, the fact that whatever you're saying in your ad or showing in your ad, the message, the demographic, whatever the customer is resonating with, you need to repeat that on your landing page, right? Or the destination that you're sending that traffic to. Otherwise, there's a disconnect, and that could be a cause for low conversion.
100%. In many cases, brands that do 8 figures, multiple 8 figures, 9 figures, whatever, they have separate funnels. And everybody asks me, why do they have separate funnels? Is because each funnel is optimized for the highest conversion rate. So forget about 2%. I'm talking about 5, 7, 8%. I've seen crazy numbers with these funnels because everything is so specific to one persona. Let's just take, for example, the Sally that is 52 that wants to lose belly fat and that is concerned about, something XYZ. That funnel, that ad, that offer, even the way that you frame and name the offer is specific to that Sally that is trying to lose weight, that is 52, and you get the point. Yeah. And so people ask me, okay, so how do I scale if I have 3 avatar customers? I'm losing potential revenue. No, you just create another funnel for Bob, that's 52, right? Or another avatar customer. So I think that's very important. Sales process congruency.
Honestly, people are lazy. And if you put in a little bit more effort and do that more specific sales process we just spoke about, it's going to allow you to get ahead, because as I said, those customers are going to resonate more with your funnel and your offer than the one that's very generic and broad.
100%. Cool. I think that's enough for this session because
we have a few more questions, but we'll save them for another time.
We'll save them for another time. But yeah, that is it. Are you enjoying Medellin so far?
Yeah, we're loving it. We're going dancing tonight, right?
Oh.
Bachata lesson. We'll see how that goes.
We're doing a bachata lesson. My first bachata lesson. I'll let you know if I'm still alive after tonight.
Yeah, I mean, if it's just me on the next episode, then you know what happened. All right, guys.
All right, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.